Hi, we wanted to introduce a new concept. Most people aren't able to come to city council meetings and may not have the time or desire to email specific questions to your mayor or council members. And so we thought we'd introduce a concept that allow you to post questions on my Facebook page and then let us find answers or give you the answers to those questions. Kind of a community conversation on issues that are not necessarily important to me, but are important to all of us, or important to you. A lot of conversation about on the street fee, how we got here. Simple answer is that in 1983, 10% of our general fund went to streets, and now only 5%. I accept some of that criticism. I've been on the council for about 10 years. I will tell you that during my time on the council, we have reduced the tax rate 5 or 6 cents. And maybe looking back, we should not have done that. We should have left the tax rate where it was, and that would have generated about $5 or $6 million a year. At the time, we thought it was better to put the money in your pocket than to spend it on city services, but I recognize it's a criticism that maybe we should have kept those funds. The second part is the growth in our police, fire, and EMS. We found early in the 2000s that we were losing tons of police, fire, and EMS personnel. We would train them, we would hire them, we would train them, and then they would get better paying jobs all over Texas. And so it behooved us to raise their rate of pay so that we could keep those people in Corpus. So when we say that more money has gone to police, fire, and EMS, and it came out of the street side, that would be an example of how that happened. Most recently, we've begun putting more money in the street fund. In fact, I made the motion 2 budgets ago to put $2 more million in the street fund. I will tell you, it was a 5-4 vote. And 4 of the council members who voted against my motion to put more money in streets had a press conference out on the City Hall steps demanding that I rescind that recommendation, and demanding that the 5 council members who supported it change their opinion. So I'll tell you, over duress, I have put more money in the street fund in the last 4 to 5 years. Another street conversation. I always laughed. I said, people don't know what they know until they know it. What I mean is that we aren't able to focus, or choose not to focus, until the issue is right before us. And so we've actually been talking about the street fee issue for about 24 months. And here's how it goes down. Mayor Adami forms a Blue Ribbon Committee. They do the math with staff and say, if you want to repair the streets in 30 years, you ought to spend about $55 million. If you want to repair them in about 10 to 15 years, you ought to spend $75 million a year. Now that's for maintenance and reconstruction. The plan I have supported is to spend about $25 million a year for reconstruction, and about $25 million a year for maintenance. On the maintenance side, we already have 10 allocated to that, and that's where we get to our 15. These numbers come from the Blue Ribbon Committee, they come from staff supporting of the Blue Ribbon Committee, and they come from staff kind of washing through the numbers saying, okay, I know you say you need 30 million, but can we get by with 25 million? At the end of the day, the $15 million target, it really is the bottom line. If we're not spending an additional $15 million a year to maintain our streets, we're never going to get caught up. It's just economically impossible. And that's why we have put such an importance on a system, a formula that generates $15 million a year. A lot of people ask what cities we have looked at. The 2 Texas cities have been predominantly Bryan up in College Station and Austin. Other cities who have nibbled around the edges include Waco and Fort Worth. It's interesting, you're seeing more and more cities that are behind us. They have tried to put additional allocations to street maintenance, but have found that they need a new income stream, and they're having conversations about a street maintenance fee. But the real focus on a Texas perspective was the Austin model. They seem to have improved upon the Bryan College Station model. There's other cities all across the country that are doing this, and we've looked at those. But for the purpose of our discussion, I think it's best to look at the Austin model. And we're going to look at the Austin model, by the way, when we talk about the appeal system, which is yet to be deliberated. A lot of conversation about, why can't we create a simple fee system? And I laugh because if you've done this as long as I have, this conversation for 2 years, I really think the model, the formula we have is fairly simple. It's real easy to, as a businessman or woman, to plug your number in, and all you have to do is have the square footage and the type of business, and it'll crank out how much you should pay on a monthly basis. So I do think it's much more simple than the media has portrayed. But then there's a conversation that says, let's charge homeowners $7 and small businesses $10, large businesses, you know, $15. The reality is the target is $15 million. And you can't, unless every business in town paid on the average of, I think, $700 a year, you can't get to the $15 million. And there's a lot of businesses in our formula that'll pay $12, $24, maybe $36 a month. And so we think the other thing is why, the concept is the businesses that create the most traffic ought to put most money into the fund. And there's not necessarily a relationship between the little business and the big business. It's really about the traffic they generate. And that's all embedded in that formula. So it sounds simple, but it's really undoable, especially if you're trying to reach the $15 million, number one. And number two, the formula we have really is much simpler than I think the media has communicated. So I ask you to just kind of pay attention to that formula and give it a chance.